In this village, a long time ago, lived a boy who had no mother or father. His name was Dick Whittington. He had no other children to play with, and every day all he could do was listen to the grown-ups talking about the wonderful places they had seen. They used to talk about London, which they said was one of the most beautiful cities they'd been to. They told Dick the streets of London were paved with gold. Dick kept on thinking about how streets would look paved with gold. He really couldn't imagine what they would be like. He could not get these thoughts out of his mind, and he decided that he would go there, no matter how long it took him. So one day he wrapped up the few things he possessed, tied the bundle to a stick, and set off for the big city. And what a long way it was! The road seemed to go on forever. But every time his feet hurt, he kept thinking about those golden streets. Many days passed, and then he saw in front of him the fabulous city of London. He ran, shouting, "I've arrived! I've arrived! Soon I will see the streets of gold!" But he didn't find the golden streets. Instead, he found that they were made of stone. In tears, he sat down outside a house. It was Mr. Fitzwarren's house. The door opened, and out came the cook, who shouted at Dick to go away. She was very angry, and was about to beat him, when Mr. Fitzwarren came out of the house. With him was his beautiful daughter, Alice. "Take him to the kitchen and give him something to eat," said Mr. Fitzwarren. "And if he wants to stay, let him." Dick was given a huge meal, and he decided he would like to stay at the house. Dick would have been very happy if it hadn't been for one thing. The cook didn't like him. She kept him working from early in the morning till late at night. If anything went wrong, she would beat him. Dick had an awful time. He slept in the attic in a little bed. When he tried to sleep, he was kept awake by mice. All night long the mice would scamper and squeak and jump in his bed. The mice were such a nuisance that he decided to spend all his money, which was exactly 1 penny, on a cat. One morning he set out to buy a cat which would catch the mice. Dick loved his cat very much indeed and gave him lots of milk to drink. Soon, of course, there were no mice left. One day, Mr. Fitzwarren told Dick he was sailing away to another country. He asked Dick if there was anything he could buy for him. "I haven't any money," Dick said. But he told Mr. Fitzwarren he could take his cat, which would keep the ship free from mice. "That's the last you'll see of your cat," snarled the cook. Dick was very sad when his cat left, so Mr. Fitzwarren's daughter gave him some money to buy another one. The cook became meaner and meaner. Soon Dick could stand it no longer and decided to run away from London and never go back. Again, he wrapped up all he had and set off through the snow. He really didn't know where to go or what to do. Suddenly, he heard the chiming of bells. He listened and listened. They seemed to be saying, "Turn again, Dick Whittington, turn again. One day you will be Lord Mayor of London." I believe you, great bells, cried Dick, and turned back as the bells had told him, back to Mr. Fitzwarren's house and the horrible cook. The cook treated him worse than ever, but Dick didn't care. He kept thinking of what the bells had told him, that one day he would be Lord Mayor of London. Far, far away, Mr. Fitzwarren's ship came to the harbour of a strange land. The crew came ashore, bringing with them all the things they'd brought to sell. They all set off for a strange town far away from their ship. It was hot. They walked for miles and miles. At last, they arrived. "Here we are," said Mr. Fitzwarren. "Let's go and sell our goods." He marched through the little winding streets at the head of his sailors and soon came to the king's palace. The guards looked very stern. The king didn't want to buy the things Mr. Fitzwarren and his men had brought, but he said he would give anything if someone could rid his country of the mice that were everywhere. Mr. Fitzwarren ran out of the palace, through the city, across the desert, back to his ship. Then, puffing and panting, ran all the way back to the palace again. He held out a sack to the king, saying, "Great king, in this sack is the end to your problem." And out jumped Dick Whittington's cat. In a few days, there were no mice left. The king told Mr. Fitzwarren that if he would leave the cat, he could have half the king's treasure. Mr. Fitzwarren agreed. And so he sailed for home. One day, he arrived back in London. He stood in front of his big house with his daughter by his side. He asked all his servants to come to him, and then he told Dick that half of the king's treasure was his, because if it hadn't been for the cat he had given him, nothing like this would have happened. So Dick became rich. He bought new clothes. He bought presents for all the servants. Yes, even for the cook, who was so amazed at Dick's kindness that she smiled, whistled, and sang. From that day on, she was a different person. Alice, Mr. Fitzwarren's daughter, who liked Dick very much, agreed to marry him. Years passed by, and the message of the great bells came true. Dick, one day, became the Lord Mayor of London. When he was famous, he often thought of his cat and wondered where it was. Dick's cat was living in great comfort in a beautiful palace at the other side of the world. Perhaps he knew that without him, this story could never have been told.